This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It's Wednesday, October 9th, 2013. This is a live broadcast. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me in studio is my co-host, my son, fellow investigator Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of live, unbiased, uncensored news analysis and information that you need to know. You're listening to the only show, I believe, where the news is presented to you in 3D. Of course, we add the depth to the news, the news beyond the headlines and bylines. We bring you the news behind the fog of lies and deceit. For new listeners, and we have many, we want to say welcome. We broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. You can find us on the internet at our home base at homelandsecurityus.com. That's homelandsecurityus.com. We're also simulcast, folks, by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can find us at the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.com. You have to spell it all out, the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.com. I want to thank you for joining us, your belief, your trust in us as we attempt to walk through this minefield of current events together. It seems like, Joe, it's getting more and more testy out there. Seems like
yes, it is.
Seems like we're
are seeing a hostility being built up through the media, through the government, and the government shutdown. What I'm going to do is, before we bring Reverend Michelle Hopkins on, who will be our guest for the show today for at least the first 2 hours, and she's welcome to stay for the third if she'd like. I'm going to play a quick audio. Tyranny Watch: Feds detain seniors at gunpoint for visiting memorials. So this is what they are trying to do. They're trying to anger people. They're trying to invoke the people's emotions and make them slip up and do something careless, do something, out of ordinary, out of control, to continue to justify what they are doing. And
Joe, before you play that clip, folks, you've got to understand the rules for radicals. Saul Alinsky, the playbook in which they're taking these plays from. This is tyranny, the very definition of tyranny. And the political theater that's going on, the progressives, the Democrats and progressives saying, well, this is all because of the Tea Party. And, of course, the Tea Party and the Republicans saying, no, this is because of Obama and the Democrats. No, ladies and gentlemen, no. It goes much deeper than that. That's just the surface. That's just entertainment for the masses. Please understand, it goes much deeper than what you're seeing. This is not a Republican/Democrat issue. This is not a progressive/conservative issue. Well, at least not the core. At least not the inner nucleus of this battle. This is the attempted takedown of the United States as a sovereign nation. This is, and I'll tell you something else. This is the bullies in Washington on both sides. And I don't care if you're listening to this and you're a Tea Party Republican and you're offended by that statement. I just don't care. And I certainly don't care if you're a progressive ideologue out there who's embracing the Saul Alinsky socialist tyranny that we're seeing.
If you're not embracing freedom, if you're not embracing, righteousness and freedom of life, liberty, and prosperity, happiness for all, then you are on the wrong side, no matter what political lines you do fall under. And here is a clip of what the National Park Service has been up to the last few days.
Welcome to Tyranny Watch. I'm Gigi Arnetta. This administration is definitely tyranny gone wild. Recently, seniors that were visiting Yellowstone Park were held hostage in their hotels by park rangers. The group had booked to stay in a hotel within the park, which soon turned into a prison as the visitors were told to remain in the building until their stay expired, despite the fact that the tour guide had already paid the $300 fee to enter the park. The group had Japanese, Canadians, and Americans. Now that's a welcome committee. Way to go, park ranger! USA! USA! In New York City, the veterans had gathered at the Vietnam Memorial Plaza to protest the 12th anniversary of the war in Afghanistan by reading out the names of the deceased U.S. soldiers. Park Services rejected the group's application to hold a protest at the site, so they hauled off our veterans in paddy wagons. In Washington, D.C., the police ordered tourists and Vietnam War veterans who were visiting the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall to leave the memorial at one point on Friday. Organizers for the Camino Americano, March for Immigration Reform, Susana Flores, confirmed that the Park Service will allow the event to take place under the group's rights granted by the First Amendment. Some 30 members of Congress, including House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, are expected to attend the Camino Americano assemblage. So let me get this straight. United States veterans cannot attend their own memorial, but Senora Flores can have her First Amendment rights to have her rally on immigration reform. Park rangers shut down a family-owned and fully booked inn along the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina on Saturday, driving customers away during the peak tourist season. Bruce O'Connell, the owner of Pisgah Inn, reopened his lodge after the Park Service demanded he close his business by Thursday due to the partial government shutdown. These park rangers don't know the Constitution, and they certainly don't know the strength of real Americans. Back off, Smokey. Remember, the government will eat their own, so beware. Now, you can do something about this. You can stand up against the tyranny. Go to prisonplanet.tv and give your username and password to up to 10 people. Do you?
All right, there is a quick clip of some things that are going on. We have the
I know it's compliments, by the way, of Alex+Jones from InfoWars.
Yeah, we have the National Park Rangers ordering visitors out of privately run businesses. We have people being forced out of their homes in Lake Mead because their homes fall on federal lands. We have clergymen being told that if they perform Mass, they are committing a crime. We have so much more going on in the way of news on this government shutdown.
With respect to Joe, with respect to the clergy being told they cannot say Mass, the Catholic clergy. Well, let me ask a question. What's stopping them?
Well, court-martial, arrest, but they are saying
you've got what, about 50, I believe the number was.
Okay, this is the article here from yesterday. President Obama and administration denied Mass to Catholics. Apparently, a priest was denied access to a military chapel this weekend. Father Ray Leonard served as a naval submarine base in Kings Bay, in Georgia, but because of the government shutdown, has not been allowed to celebrate Mass this past weekend. He is contracted by the Defense Department to meet spiritual needs of Catholics, but not now. The chapel was locked and the sign said shut down, no Catholic service till further notice. And Father Leonard said the following: our church Catholics have expectation and obligation to attend Mass, and we were told, no, you can't go to church this week. My parishioners were upset. They were angry and dismayed. They cannot believe that in America they have been denied access to Mass by the government.
Did anyone of the clergy or the Mass goers have a pair of bolt cutters?
Not to my knowledge, but I know one thing, that all this closing down of the people from the national parks, there was a satire article going around that there was a sheet being put up on Mount Rushmore. There are people, national park guards being hired 24/7 around the clock to stand guards to make sure people can't even pull off of public roads to take pictures of places in Yellowstone. Steve Quayle was on our show yesterday talking about how he had to take a helicopter ride or an airplane ride because of the shutdown. And
well, he didn't have to. He does.
Yeah,
he does do that for the photographing of different Yellowstone for the.
He couldn't just go down to the park as he usually does, as
Correct.
it is closed. I mean, we have things that are being shut off to the public that have no reason to be shut off. it is being done. We heard on the Mark Levin show last week, somebody from the administration said this was an optical, I forget how it was worded, it was an optic, making it look worse than what it is, making it appear like more things were affected than naturally would be. And I was not old enough to remember the details of the last government shutdown and how things went, but in talking with people who were, they say this is something they've never seen before. This is overreaching by the Obama administration and the people pulling his strings, trying to make this shutdown look much worse than it is, denying rights to people. As you heard in that clip, they held a rally for immigration services on the National Mall, yet people and the World War II veterans are being denied access to the park to look at the World War II memorial, the Vietnam memorial, yet they're giving, and Nancy Pelosi thanked Obama for the exemption in allowing them to hold a pro-immigration rally at the National Mall. Right. So this is being done just to evoke emotions. It's being done just to anger people and get them knocked off of their out of their balance. And to a large part, it's working. Now, without any further ado, I want to bring on our guest for this evening, Reverend Michelle Hopkins. Folks, you can go on YouTube and check out her YouTube channel at Rev Michelle, Michelle, Hopkins, Hopkins, where she has a bunch of videos, very informative, and she has been a guest on once before, and we are glad to have her back. Miss Hopkins, it's glad to have you on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Thank you so much. What a blessing to be here.
It's great to have you. A lot has happened since you've last came on.
Ms. Hopkins, we've picked up a lot of new listeners since your last appearance, and if you don't mind, why don't you tell our listening audience a little bit about yourself, so people know who you are, and reinforce as well the video channel that you have.
Okay, well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm an ordained minister, independent, non-denominational, and I'm retired due to a disability, a music evangelist by trade. I went to Cumberland College, and that's now referred to as the University of the Cumberlands, and I followed my college education with Bible Institute. My scientific and military expertise stem from my association with ranking military personnel and scientists who are in the world's foremost authorities in their field.
Wow. Quite a background there.
So you just said on your deathbed have done nothing with your life.
That's right. I'm just, wow, God help me.
Well, no, those are pretty impressive credentials. And I ask that because a lot of times people will say, well, there are some people out there that will call themselves a reverend, for example, and have no divinity association with divinity. But thank you for offering that very concise bio. Now, what's your YouTube channel, which is very popular, by the way?
Oh, thank you very much.
That's where can people find that?
Just go right to youtube.com, and all you have to do is search for Rev Michelle Hopkins.
It calls to you. Okay, folks, hopefully you can hear me now. Hang up and just call the studio. All right, guys, can you hear me? It's back. Okay, great. Now we're just going to try and get my dad back, and we have him here.
Am I here?
You are here.
This is just like a safari every night, for crying out loud.
I mean, we should keep a calendar. You know how the people in manufacturing places and warehouses say, it's been X amount of days without an accident. We need to keep a calendar that says, it's been 31 days without a sound problem.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't get past the single digits, I'm afraid. Sorry about that, Ms. Hopkins. We're so sorry about that. It seems like we have these outages on a fairly routine basis, and we do fight them. And of course, it's not on our end, which, one can.
No, it's not on our end.
And you can read into that what you will. I do have a feeling that talking with people like Rick Wiles and others, there is this concerted effort to shut us or to keep us off the air. So once again, but we're glad we're back and connected with all of you. And our guest tonight is Reverend Michelle Hopkins, very popular, very informative news channel, YouTube channel on the internet, and we're so delighted to have her with us. With that, Reverend Hopkins, can you hear us okay now?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
All right.
And
well, go ahead.
I'm really not surprised that this is happening tonight, because ever since I put up this new video, urgent classified documentation reveals horrifying government plot on my channel, people have been reporting to me that they've had nothing but problems trying to download it and watch it, that it stops or they're blocked and Facebook won't put it on Facebook and things like that. So, that doesn't surprise me at all that Blog Talk's joining in the game.
Sure. So it's your fault then. We can blame you.
It's my fault. I can't help it.
Well, tell us about this video, because I was sent this video, I would say probably 50 or 60 times. I'm certain of it. But why don't you tell the audience about this video, about its origins, and about what just go ahead. Lay it all out.
All right. This video that I put up just yesterday has really gone viral. Dr. Bill Weld, he's a surgeon and a lawyer, and he is now very ill, by the way. He's in renal failure, so we need to keep him upheld in prayer. He was supposed to go on Heads Up Warriors on Sunday night, October 6th, but he was so ill that he was unable to make it. So his son actually helped him get up from his sick bed to make this video, and I gave him my word that I would mirror it with his video and put some visual aids to it. So that's how this video came about. He put an original one on his site, and I took excerpts from it, put visual aids to it, and in it he describes classified documents from the CIA, Naval Intelligence, and the DOD that he has seen personally. And he's promised his source that he won't bring that to the public, the actual documents, for 2 weeks. And this will allow his source to finish his retirement and leave the country, because as soon as these documents are published, his source is absolutely sure that he would be killed if he were to remain in the country. They are that classified. But this information is just too time sensitive, given all the different things that are going on right now, especially with the CDC. And, there's just too many things that are coming together and culminating. This had to go out on the air. The documents describe tiny, microcellular-sized killing machines called nanites. Now, these ones are not microcellular in size. They're a little bigger than that. They're about the size of a grain of sand or two. But we've normally heard of nanites in chemtrails. Chemtrail nanites that we're familiar with burrow into human flesh, and they incessantly build polysilicon fibers for the sake of recreating man into cyborg-like creatures. It's all about transhumanism. And what they are is a human experiment, just like as in the Holocaust was done. And it's done on the general public without our knowledge or consent. Morgellons, this dreadful disease of terrible open sores and fibers coming right out of the body, and doctors refuse, even still, to give credence to it. This is the result of those kind of nanites. But these kind of nanites that Dr. Weld is referring to are made for one simple purpose. That's to burrow into the bloodstream, to gain entrance to the brain in order to attach themselves to the brain tissue and lay in wait for a classified military frequency signal to give them their working orders. At which time, they manipulate the brain to send signals into the body that in effect create a kind of cytokine storm or a cascade. It's what that is sort of an immune system feedback loop. And it causes a cascade of symptoms. It just, your immune system goes wild, completely out of control. And they cause the body's immune system to turn in against the body itself, and it mimics a virulent flu-like symptoms that they develop into upper respiratory infection, fluid in the lungs, pneumonia, and then death. The target survival rate for the powers that be for the general population who's infected with this is 2%.
Yeah, I
They're
heard
hoping
that. Yeah, 2%.
Hoping that no more than 2% of the people that are infected survive. That's what they're hoping for. Now they're saying that they want 99% of the general populace to be infected with these things. They're saying 98% is infected, and that most of us, we are already. And the reason being, this program was implemented in 1995. So it's been going on since 1995.
Who implemented the program in 1995 specifically? Do we know?
A concerted effort between the CIA, the DOD, and naval intelligence.
All right.
But I believe it's more than that. I truly believe this is a global effort through the UN Agenda 21. This has everything to do with global depopulation, from 7 billion down to 500 million.
Which makes sense when you think about the numbers. But so, how was this introduced? What was the medium that was used, or media that was used to introduce this into our bodies?
Well, there are several ways to do it. Let me just read you one of the comments that one of the people came on my page. He said, in 1998, my friend walked away from the CIA. He came home to his sister's home. He got to know him. He said he worked on something that would kill over 50% of the people. He couldn't get him to tell him what it was, but he said it was either in the food or the water. There's no cure. Unfortunately, this man is dead now. But that's what it is. It's in the water or in the food. This kind is a little too large to just let it drop and somehow we'll breathe it in like other nanites. These nanites are just a little bit bigger than that. And so we would drink it down in whatever water or drink that we would be drinking. All it would take is for, now we realize our water treatment plants are government run. They are run by the local government. So if it is made into law that a new chemical has to be put into this water treatment for whatever reason, that new chemical goes in. So you just put it in this new chemical, or it is the new chemical, and you just pour it into the water. It's in the water system. And when you pour out a drink of water out of the tap, hello, there it is. And a lot of these bottled water that you get are tap water.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, folks. I mean, the FDA does not regulate the bottled water industry. A lot of people don't know that.
And it's been known that you can have, up to 2 or 3 ingredients used to trigger some kind of sickness, illness in yourself, but we'll say you have 2 of those ingredients already inside you. We'll say one could be, some kind of nuclear waste, cesium, another being a regular mineral you'll have in your system like iron. Then they introduce the 3rd ingredient, which would make all 3 merge together and go active in some way, making you, as Reverend Michelle said, you are infected, yet you don't know it because that 3rd part or 3rd particle has not been introduced, making
a reagent with the latency, against the latency period. Wouldn't they be visible, however?
They are barely visible. They're barely visible with the naked eye. If you put them on something, on a surface that you could see something that is almost clear but white opaque, that is so small that it's smaller or as small as a tiny grain of sand, then you might be able to see it.
Has anyone found any of these and displayed them? For example, conducted a test of the water supply, for example, and actually done an authenticated test to verify the existence of what you're talking about? Not that I'm doubting this, I'm just asking if this has been done.
They have verified the other nanites. They've done exactly as you said and verified the other nanites, and I have had a comment from someone who said that they caught something like this when they were drinking something down. It was caught in their teeth. They still have it, and I said, look, could you please take a bunch of pictures of it with a background that makes it really easy to see and put it in a video and let us all see this.
Okay.
So I'm waiting on that. We'll see if anything comes of that.
Interesting.
However, now let me just say that Dr. Weld, he did say, he promised that these documents will be released in 2 weeks, and if anything happens to himself or his family, he's given orders to friends who have copies of them to release them immediately.
Now,
and they will.
Are these redacted? Because the documents I saw in the video were redacted. Are these redacted documents?
No.
Okay.
These are fully open documents.
Hmm.
Yeah, the documents that I put as visual aids were not the documents that he's talking about. They were just for visual aid to allow people to understand what a document looks like from the DOD and from CIA and so forth. So
why not really? Now, this might sound like a kind of an ignorant question, but why not release them now? And I understand that. Well, this would act
source.
Go ahead.
His source is still working for the CIA. Well, he's still working for the government, I'll say.
Okay.
And so he will be fully retired and out of the country in 2 weeks, at which time these can be publicized. Because as far as we know, the government doesn't know who this person is. They know the leak is there, obviously, now, but they don't know the identity of the whistleblower.
Right.
So we need to get him out of the country to save his life, because this is big.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah.
No, I fully understand that. I didn't. Yeah, I had failed to recall that there was that third party involved there. So, wow.
Now, when I asked my NASA contacts about this, and I said, why nanites? Why these nanites? And the answer was, no more humans needed. That is the literal word-for-word answer I got.
Wow.
No more humans needed.
Right. And you were talking about merging the different metals or chemicals or whatever in the body for whatever purpose. NASA has a depleted uranium program for that very reason. It will actually use the depleted uranium, superheat it in the air, and merge living tissue and non-living mechanics together in the air. And they're working on that up there so that they can do it with us.
So, okay, let me just get this, let me process this, as I'm sure our listeners are processing this as well. Can you hear me okay?
Sure.
Okay, sorry about that. I just felt like I went deaf there for a moment.
I'm kind of getting an echo now.
Okay. Joe, I don't know if you're messing with. All right, we're just adjusting some sound things on our board here. But so what we would be looking at, if I'm understanding this correctly, would be something that would appear to be viral, that would afflict the population really of the world, or at least the United States, if not the world. would have no geographical boundaries, that would, at the very least, overtax the medical community, but ultimately cause the death of billions in a period of 60 days.
Right. Right. Now, let me share some other things that are rather frightful with you that go right along these lines.
That wasn't. I mean,
that's what you need, more frightfulness.
Okay.
The CDC says that the U.S. healthcare system is likely to be overwhelmed from a fall 2013 H7N9 outbreak. Now, I want somebody to please explain to me how the CDC is expecting an outbreak of something that has not happened in the States yet.
Yeah, good question.
Okay. So that's quite a crystal ball they've got there. It's also interesting to note that it is documented that H7N9 has been developed into an aerosol. So.
Okay. So what we're why would there be a need for that? Well, of course, there's no single point failure aspect,
you have to cover every base. You know, the CDC is every year, numerous times every year, the CDC is saying, well, this virus is going to be the next pandemic. We're going to have a pandemic. It's coming, and this year we're going to have a pandemic. The pandemic never pans out. But it's always interesting to me that they know what pandemic is coming.
Well, right. And it was my understanding that how they determine what pandemic is coming is based on what's happening in for example, in China, in provinces in China, how how it migrates from there. I could be incorrect on that, but.
Well, some of those things.
Getting some feedback.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Wow, it's a horrible sound quality coming from Skype evening. And Ms. Hopkins, I'm going to have to.
What I'm trying to do, folks, can you hear me? And Joe, you're going to have to give me a thumbs up or down. Okay, whether they can hear me in the chat room. All right. We just had to use a different method of communication. I cannot hear Reverend Hopkins at the moment, and certainly, Joe, I can't hear you. Well, to avoid dead air, and I don't know if Reverend Michelle Hopkins is talking or not, but so what this sounds like, and folks, you can find this on the internet. In fact, just search on the internet, YouTube, Reverend Michelle Hopkins, find her latest video, and watch that. There we go. I heard something here.
I'm back online.
There we go.
This is the second time that BTR through Skype or Skype through BTR has dropped us from the call.
Yeah.
Don't understand what the problem is. As I said earlier, we've had weeks without sound issues. Now we are appearing to have sound issues.
Well, at any rate, Reverend Hopkins, can you hear me okay, or do we have a problem?
I got to bring her back.
Okay. It's interesting to note what she's talking about are the issues with, going back to 1995, the population reduction, population control. Now, I'm sure that this has indeed been going on since then, and I'm sure that there's, the objective has always been to reduce the population, to cull the herd, if you will. And I don't have any doubt in my mind, but this is particularly barbaric in the method, and of course in the lack of. This would be an extermination event. But my question is, why haven't they pulled the trigger? Why haven't they introduced the reagents to cause the illness? And how are they going to do that? In what capacity? Now, those are questions that when Reverend Hopkins comes back on, perhaps she can answer.
I'm here.
Okay, Reverend Hopkins, have you seen the actual papers? Can I ask you that, or would you rather not comment on that?
No, I have not. I have not, but in 2 weeks, I guarantee you I will.
Okay, all right. And thank you for your patience with our sound issues, of course.
Quite all right.
Yeah, God bless you for that. It is frustrating and something that we go through periodically here on Blog Talk. So,
but okay, go ahead and continue. You're fine.
Okay. Well, according to this CDC solicitation, this H7N9 influenza is what has been behind the massive pandemic C4ISR mobilization. All this stuff that's been going on, sustaining now, the next thing is sustaining emergency television broadcasts, the emergency television thing. Okay, now to cope with this, what FEMA's trying to do is mobilize the support of 100,000 medical personnel, and they're doing all of the medical gear and tools and facilities and equipment in mass quantity, like 6 million autoclavable white cotton blankets, stuff like that, just huge amounts of things to be deliverable in 48 hours, with 48 hours notice. Now, one of their contractors said, okay, the Armageddon scenario is too large. And that's what they're calling this, an Armageddon scenario.
Oh, wow.
They're saying this is too large. So with several other parties, we could address and service now get this, the 20 camps in California, the 5 in Oregon, and the 5 in Washington. We're talking about FEMA camps. This is a FEMA scenario.
Okay.
A FEMA solicitation.
Well,
and when the question was asked, can we have a longer lead time for the initial order, the answer was no. 48 hours, that's it. Go ahead.
Why bother? Oh, okay. For example, why would they go through the process of attempting to? Okay, if the intent is to depopulate, and I have no doubt in my mind that there's the intent out there, why would there be any attempt or any suggestion to prepare for the efforts to save anyone, rather than, well, pardon me being graphic here, just disposing of the corpses, I guess is my question.
Do you remember the Holocaust?
I wasn't personally there.
I mean, I wasn't around for it, but I mean, have you seen films and so forth of the Holocaust? And okay, we're talking about an overwhelming number of people. You can only kill so many people before you run out of places to put them, the dead bodies, out of ways to get rid of the dead bodies. You have to preserve yourself in the process, so you have to slow the process down a little bit.
I see.
And you have to have a place for quarantine. And these FEMA camps are work camps. We've already been told they are work camps. They're for detention, for detainment indefinitely. They are work camps.
Okay.
So we're talking about slavery now, just like we did during the Holocaust.
Wow.
Yeah, and Ms. Hopkins, I have a question from a listener.
Okay.
It says, do they want to spread the disease in order to implement chipping worldwide? And I've been doing a lot of research on the RFID chip and their implementation process.
Well, yeah, they're pushing it. They're pushing it through the medical thing. You know, if something happens and you have that chip, you know, all will go well with you in the medical community. That's basically what it is. Now, I have been told by people in the medical community that they were forced, because of Obamacare, to purchase brand new computers with brand new programs in them, and also the Obamacare facilities, the insurance has also had to do the same thing, except they're two different programs, and the chip, the RFID chip, is the only thing that links the two together. So you can't get payment unless you have the RFID chip, if you're a doctor.
Wow.
Your people who come to you for treatment will eventually have to have that RFID chip. You cannot bill Obamacare without it.
Right.
My research has been showing the same thing, the global identification number, the universal health care, the medical countermeasures, mitigation, prevention in diseases and pandemics are what they are trying to implement this under. They say in order to have a unified health system that would be both most beneficial and efficient to humans, patients, and to the providers, would be to have the most amount of information at the tip of their fingertips at the basically instantly. In case there is any disasters, they can know how many people are missing, and right away. They're trying to make all the good reasons why it's needed, without using the language to say also for total control.
Now, for this to be the mark of the beast, there has to be some sort of Luciferic initiation and some sort of pledge or oath to the Antichrist. For that to happen, there has to be global cataclysm on multiple fronts. That way, that will bend the knees of the people around the globe to the Savior Antichrist. So somehow, that's going to have to happen first, and this Armageddon scenario is a great way to start it off.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So when is this going to take place? I mean, when is this going to start? Is there a start date associated with this?
According to the CDC, they believe it's going to be fall of 2013.
A lot of dates have been thrown around for this time period, from October 1st to November 13th to Comet Ison's pass around the sun on November 28th.
October 17th, when we give up our ability to use our money, pay our bills.
That is something that I want to get into with you about, because I'm going to get pick your brain about that. But before we change topics, what more can be said? And folks, once again, if you're just joining us later, if you're joining us because you had experienced audio troubles, we're speaking with Reverend Michelle Hopkins. Has a very prominent channel on YouTube talking about the latest video concerning this pandemic, for lack of a better term, and the classified documents that will be released once the source is ferreted away safely outside of the country. And this is what we're speaking about here is population reduction and population. Well, it's mass genocide here.
Yeah.
I mean,
and if I can jump in talking about,
please,
Miss Hopkins and our YouTube channel, we talk a lot about not just regurgitating the news that is presented around us, but breaking the news, breaking important news stories. Miss Michelle Hopkins has broken a few very big stories, and this being one of them. And I commend her for being on the front lines of doing things like this, because this is where they really come after you. If you have information the government does not want out and you're releasing it, you are put in a much higher level of danger than people who are just, regurgitating or evaluating the news. And we try to break news, and we go over the news as it's supposed to be gone over with the truth. But Ms. Hopkins, I want to commend you on coming out and not being afraid to take a stand and giving the people the information that is needed, because so many would not do that due to fear and intimidation and other reasons.
Well, thank you so much. And, I have found that when you face your mortality on a daily basis, which is what I do with the MJD, there isn't any time anymore to worry about what other people think. And if they're going to take me out, I would rather be taken out doing the Lord's work. If I am going to be arrested for being a Christian, I want there to be ample evidence to convict me. You know what I mean?
I love that. Absolutely. Because this is, I believe we were born for this time. This is our appointed time. I believe that we have a job to do, each one of us. If you're listening to this program, folks, if you're listening to this program, or if you are, if you have your own program, or we're doing what Michelle Hopkins is doing, you were born for this time. You have a job to do. And if you don't do that job, you're not, how can you possibly face yourself, your children, your grandchildren, if you don't pick up and do the Lord's work? Now, having said that, Reverend Hopkins, have we covered pretty much everything about this new video that you have out, or is there more to this that we should discuss before moving on?
That really is pretty much all of it. I will reiterate that these are not the same nanites that we heard about before that cause Morgellons. These are a different flavor of nanites, and they do a different thing. They're more along medical nanites than the kind of nanites that the other ones are.
Okay, I've got a question from a listener in just outside of Nashville, asking, is there any way to detect if you have these in your system?
I would say assume you have it and then take action to prepare against it. Like, make sure you're healthy in whatever way you possibly can. And this is what I do. It's very important because we're attacked a lot here with chemtrails and with frequency. And there are certain things that I do besides prayer and being covered by the Lord and His Word, invoking the Lord's name against it. I do something called lavage. It's a nasal lavage. And I use water that I have personally boiled and strained, double strained. So there's absolutely nothing in that water. And I let it sit for a while to make sure there's nothing in it. And that's what I use for the lavage. You put some salt in it, some regular salt, and just rinse your nasal passages with it. And I go from hardly being able to function to being wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. It's that big of a difference.
Yeah. Do you do this once a day or more than that?
No,
or?
I just do it when my body tells me it needs to be done today because I'm in a total fog and I'm completely unable to function. Okay, go for it. Do it every few days, every 2 or 3 days or 4 days.
Interesting. All right. Very good. Okay, and at 8 p, I hope that does answer your question. I think it does. All right. Well, let's move on, Reverend Hopkins. here we are now facing, well, obviously in the midst of this government shutdown and facing the default on the 17th. Let me ask you, number one, do you believe that we will see a financial default? We will experience one on October 17th?
You know, we have people telling us, no, there's plenty of money in the not in the budget, but we have plenty of money in the till that is continuing to come in, even though other things are stopped right now, that we can pay Social Security, we can pay the interest on our debt, but our president is coming out and saying, well, if you think that's the way it's going to be, you've got another thing coming. And I have said out loud, you know, if this president, having the money in hand, does not order the payment of our interest on these debts, and as a result, we lose ground financially, that is treason.
Yeah, I think perhaps by definition, based on the 14th Amendment, it would be anti-constitutional, of course, treasonous as well. But will it get that far, do you think?
I believe this president was sent here to do that. I have said this on one other program, and I don't believe anybody else has ever said this, you know, on the radio. I believe President Obama was an Illuminati baby. I believe he was born and bred by the Illuminati to do exactly what he has done since he has been in office. I believe he was put in office by the Illuminati, and he will stay there until they say go.
I agree with you on that, and perhaps we're coming at this from different angles, but I do agree with you on this. I go back to 2008. Look at what was going on in 2007. Actually, you know, when we were discussing the eligibility issue, and that was the third rail of everybody. I mean, that was everyone's third rail. We had a situation where we could have really stopped this from happening, yet no one did. And those who attempted to stop this were marginalized, were mocked, were ridiculed, were called racist. But if you look back at the background, or lack thereof, or the legend that is Barack Hussein Obama, I agree that look at his mother and Geithner's father. Look at all the relationships, such as relationships we've seen. I have to say that he was selected for this point in time. So I agree with you on this. Now, but go on with that, because this is interesting.
Okay, I believe that there is a pretense by the Republican Party that they're using October 15th as a pressure date, and that they're not going to vote to raise the debt ceiling unless their demands are met. The Democratic Party is going to continue to be a brick wall. The president is going to continue to be a brick wall. He's basically non-com. You know, as far as negotiation is concerned, he is immovable. So I believe, you know, unless the powers that be change their minds that this is not quite the time yet to bring America into this global economic collapse and bring in the new world order dollar, you know, I believe October 17th is going to be the first domino to begin to bring down this economy.
You mentioned Obama being from the Illuminati, an Illuminati baby, if you will, or the product of the Illuminati. That makes a lot of sense to me. That does answer a lot of questions, of course. You know, why that there was no blowback from this constitutional eligibility, why Obama over Hillary, that we know, of course, that was decided at the the Bilderberg meeting in Chantilly, Virginia, in 2008. So, okay, this does make sense. So do you feel that he's going to be the last president to preside over the constitutional republic of the United States?
We've heard that from different fronts all over the world. Even the Russians are saying that.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So.
Wow. All right. So, and I believe too, and I've written about this extensively, that we're looking at the murder of the U.S. dollar. That the intent here is to kill the U.S. dollar, which is standing in the way of the global currency, the one world currency, which they already have the solution for.
Right.
And in the end, I believe this as well, and perhaps you might have a couple of thoughts on this. Who would step in this power vacuum, assuming that the United States would fall economically? Who would step in to pick up the pieces, superintend the economic aspect of things as the world's reserve currency?
You know, I believe more than just the money is going to fall. I mean, I have a question for you before we go on to that one, and that is, are we still operating in a constitutional republic?
It's a good question. I don't believe we are. No, and I don't think we have for some time. Since at least since 2001.
So that being the case, yeah, I agree, and I think that being the case, the person is already residing.
Yeah, I think you're right. We've been under a soft form of martial law, and will continue to be until it goes hardcore, depending on what kind of economic collapse, natural disaster, pandemic, influenza they will create to bring us into the hardcore martial law. And with that, Ms. Hopkins, we're going to go to our top of the hour break, which will be about 3 minutes long. So we'll be right back after these short messages. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Wednesday, October 9th, 2013, with a very special guest, Reverend Michelle Hopkins. Go ahead and check out her YouTube channel. It's Rev Michelle Hopkins on YouTube. So much informative information is up there on her videos. She puts together some of the most important and informative information, timely information, and every time she puts up a video, I was telling her this on the phone the other day when we were setting up this interview, that I will get 5 to 10 people sending me her latest video. By the time I wake up and check my email and my Skype messages, I'll have that video about 5 to 10 times that somebody has sent to me and said, you got to watch this. So definitely bookmark and save her YouTube channel. It's Rev Michelle Hopkins on YouTube. Just search that. It should pop right up. And we'll be back right after these short messages on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Wednesday, October 9th, 2013. We're going to jump right back to our interview. First, I want to play this quick clip where martial law, the term martial law, was used on the House floor this morning by Sheila Lee Jackson. And here is what she said.
It is not the truth to suggest that there are not enough voters, members of Congress, that would vote right now today to open this government. It's something called a continuing resolution, but it's a bill that you put on the floor that has been passed already by Republicans and Democrats in the United States Senate. This is not an idea of anyone over another person. Republican and Democratic senators have already voted for this clean bill that we could vote on today. We have martial law. What that means, and my colleagues know what it means, is that you can put a bill on in just minutes.
Okay. Now that clip, however out of place it may sound right now, is something that I want you to think about, hold on to. We'll play it again in the third hour. But what was being said there? We have martial law, and this clip can be, or this vote can be put on, or this bill can be put out and voted on in just minutes. But Sheila Lee Jackson using the term martial law on the House floor this morning, very odd. And now back with our guest, Reverend Michelle Hopkins, and so glad to have you, Miss Hopkins. You can check out her YouTube site, Rev Michelle Hopkins. on YouTube. You have so many subscribers. It continues to climb, and you talk about ISON, solar events, natural disasters, government disasters, like we're seeing now with the government shutdown. We talked about the latest video you have on your website or on your YouTube channel. What else are you seeing aside from October 17th? Have you heard about this GridX power outage, the power drill that they're going to run? Some say it's just a simulation, no power will go out. Others say prepare for days without power. What have you been hearing about the November 13th and 14th power drill that they're planning to put on?
Well, they're actually going into places that are participating in this drill, and they're shutting down the electricity in those organizations. They're actually given access to the inner sanctums of these places and given the ability to shut them down. So for those days, they will be shut down. I hope they come up without any problem. And I don't know what else they're doing while they're in there, because it's all very hush-hush, very top secret. But that's what they're doing with these other things. Now, I don't know if while this is happening, the United States is going to experience some sort of EMP. And I don't know whether the government's going to blame it on a CME coming from the sun. ISON coming toward the sun and careening into the sun would be a perfect opportunity to blame the sun on an EMP. You know, to say, well, the sun sent a CME toward us and our magnetosphere couldn't handle it and a CME occurred, which is absolute balderdash. I mean, even when we have a major, huge CME coming off the equatorial region of the sun, which is where it has to come from to come anywhere near Earth. First of all, it has to go toward the trajectory of Earth. From that immediate spot, it has to actually hit Earth while Earth's orbit goes around in that area, which means it's not really going toward Earth when it leaves. Okay, it meets Earth at its orbit, at which time our magnetosphere takes care of it. And even if it is so powerful that it backs the magnetosphere up, the magnetosphere acts like a slingshot, pushes it back, and then we have a secondary fail-safe, and that is our atmosphere, which, you know, protects us as well. And the most that we see out of that kind of thing is beautiful aurora borealis, and then we might have some communications glitches. But other than that, you know, it doesn't cause earthquakes like some people think, you know. It doesn't cause anything else but those things. So for our government to claim that somehow America and only America is hit by a southerly projectile EMP from the sun, absolute balderdash.
Okay, so I really rarely have ever been in this state of confusion before. You've got multiple things taking place all within a very short period of time. And each one independently of the other could cause very serious ramifications for the country and globally, you know. Out of all of these, where does ISON rank on your concern scale? It would be in the lower half or middle or upper half?
ISON ranks right about big, fat, hairy deal.
Okay.
Big, fat, hairy deal. I mean, and I'm not saying that sarcastically. I'm saying big deal.
Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting.
The reason being, we have the capability to move asteroids about and comets about. We have that capability. We hold a symposium every year, twice a year. The UN does, to talk about that very thing, the newest thing to do that with. So we don't have any problem with doing that. As a matter of fact, Russia was complaining that they believed that we were doing that with ISON because ISON was changing its trajectory toward one of Mars's moons. And I don't know whether it was because of the forward jetting that was causing that with ISON or whether it really was doing that. It's really difficult to tell exactly where it is, particularly since we can't see anything from NASA instrumentation because NASA has gone quiet. So that in itself, you know, if we've got something as big as ISON catapulting around the sun on a straight trajectory toward Earth's orbit, whether it's southerly or northerly or right on top of Earth, and NASA goes quiet.
Yeah, that is rather disconcerting to think about. At least they would issue, they should issue, one would think, some statements concerning the comet itself. And of course, we have Stan Dale on a weekly basis. He's referenced comet ISON. And more concerned, well, not more concerned, but concerned about the trail, the dirty trail that it has the potential of leaving as well. So, I mean, there are a whole laundry list of issues here.
Yeah, have you been able to get a finger on why ISON's pictures from NASA, why NASA has not been releasing information?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I know exactly why.
Okay.
Because in 2009, Barack Obama did an executive order making all near-Earth objects, all space objects, and all asteroids and fireballs. These were actually literally spoken of, these actual words. They are top secret classified. So, you know,
wow.
Normal Joe, regular Joe, not allowed to know. NASA put up a big fight about that. You know, they went round and round with the upper echelon about it and said, look, this really helped us to do this and to know this. Why are you stopping this communication? And nothing. No, it's top secret. The reason is because we can use them now as weapons.
Oh, using directed energy? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. And HARP displayed to the world, they demonstrated that they were able to create, sustain, and direct plasma balls and other spatial bodies in the atmosphere and near space. And, you know, if you look at, okay, let's go back to what's happening right now. Meteors, meteorites. We are having the heaviest season of meteor showers that we have ever had in the history of ever. Okay? In September, which is supposed to be the height of the meteor season, this year was 6 times more meteors than normal season in the height of the season in September for the year. 6 times normal. In a span of like 3 days, we had over 2,000 meteors and meteorites falling to the Earth, fireballs falling to the Earth. And I saw a map. I'm looking at it right now. And this was a map of the last 50 meteorites, last 50 fireballs that fell through our atmosphere. And there are 10 around the globe. Okay, in other countries, 1 in each country, and the rest of them are in the United States.
Speaking of this from a biblical perspective, should we be reading a message into this?
On the great and terrible day, when Jesus returns, one of the things he's returning to do is to destroy those who are destroying the earth.
Okay.
That's what they're doing. Satan is their father. Always go back to the big picture. If you find yourself saying, what in the world? This doesn't make any sense. Why would they want to do this? Back yourself off of it. Look at the big picture and remind yourself Satan is their father. Satan is who they worship. And what is his main goal for humans and for the earth, which God created? He hates us with a venom. He wants to destroy us utterly, body and soul. That's what it's all about. That's why.
Okay. And I'm a big picture kind of guy. I do like looking at the big picture of things because by themselves, things don't make sense necessarily. If you look at, if you look at Syria and Benghazi, if you don't look at it, if you don't step back and look at the bigger picture, that policy, it doesn't make much sense. But if you realize that we're doing we're like the mercenary army for the Saudis in the case of the Arab Spring and of course Syria, then it begins to fall into place that, okay, now there's this power grab and transfer of wealth and power. So now we understand this. Okay, so what you're saying is look at the bigger picture, and I do okay, that's right. Pretty clear.
Because like you, I'm just like you. I look at this huge thing, and it makes no sense. Why on earth would people think this way and do this? It's absolutely insane. But insane is where you have to go to figure it out. You have to go to the father of insane, who is the one they're worshiping, and what his whole aim and goal is. And then it falls into place and makes sense.
Yeah, if I can ask you this is kind of a left-handed question here, unscripted, totally off the wall. But how did you begin? We all have our stories of waking up and one day saying, you know what, I've got a calling all of a sudden. I mean, I'm supposed to. It was like Joe and I. All of a sudden, we were led to do what we're doing. It was like a smack upside the head by God himself. That's the only way I could describe it, because I would not be doing what I'm doing right now. What is your story? How did you become involved and engrossed and a researcher, investigator into what you're doing? Was there one thing that caused you to do this?
There is, actually. It's a culmination of things. Being disabled, and the Lord gave me feet for a while, but then, He made me sit and gave me time, and then gave me tools. And in different instances, He gave me different reasons, different purposes to use these things. And when I had gotten onto Facebook, right, and then somebody turned me on to YouTube. And I was just thinking, oh, that's great, all these videos and so forth on YouTube. And I started watching these videos about these strange things called chemtrails. Well, before the first video I saw wasn't about chemtrails. It was about this white fluffy stuff that looked almost alive, but it wasn't quite alive. And I thought, I've got to figure out what this is, because this guy is asking me what it is. So I looked around and I thought, maybe it's some sort of seed pod. And I, told him that, and he was very gracious. He already knew what it was. He was very gracious with me. And then I went back, and that's when I started watching videos on chemtrails. And I said to myself, this is crazy. I mean, there's no way that this could possibly be true. And I went back to my friend from NASA, and I said, look, this is what I'm seeing. And he absolutely floored me. He said, yes, it's true, Michelle. And we are calling it aerosols, but we do call it chemtrail. And I showed him some video, and he said, yeah, that's the France project. And, we went from one thing to the next, and all this story began to unfold before me that he was telling me that just, it broke my heart to know that the government was involved in this. And he said, yeah, Michelle, we've been called upon by the DOD to work on one portion or another of this, not on the actual chemtrails themselves, but like in June of such and such a year, the DOD came to us and said, look, our pilots are dying. You know, we need you to come up with an atmospheric conditions way to get them around this so that it doesn't blow back on them and they die. And so that's what we did. We did it to save the pilots' lives. And so I was like, okay, you're saving the lives of the pilots, but okay, we're not going to go there. Anyway, little by little by little, this horrible picture unfolded of what really was going on and what the government was behind. And then it went from chemtrails to, okay, what is this business with the UFO thing? Why are governments all over the world trying to make people believe in UFOs? And we went to different things. He said, you know, here in the scientific community, we don't call them UFOs, we call them ULSs, unidentified light sources, because really all it is a light source. 9 times out of 10, it's ground-based, and it's somebody holding an LED on the ground, making a community believe there's something up in the air. And with the chemtrails, it makes it look three-dimensional, which is why they chemtrail the area in the first place, which tells you that the person who's doing it is paid by the local government to do it, which then tells you, okay, there is some kind of conspiracy behind this. And I said, what is it? He said, well, they want you to believe that people are coming from, you know, another place, and we went on to discuss, okay, what really is going on with this, and it came out that there is a false flag alien invasion coming. It's one of these worldwide catastrophes that is going to bring us all together for the New World Order. And I said, is that what it's for? You know, is it so that we will all make peace with each other and come against these aliens? And he laughed at me. You know, I said, is it trying to make us all come together as one? And he just laughed. I said, well, what is it? He said, there's a message. And I said, well, what's the message? He said, the message is surrender.
Surrender.
Surrender. There's going to be a lot of death, a lot of blood, a lot of dying. And what is not created by mankind, I mean, the vehicles are created by mankind, okay? But mankind is not the only people that are involved in this. And I'm not saying they're aliens, I'm saying they're interdimensional. They're demonic, Nephilim, Rephaim, people like that. There's a resurgence of demonically brought about human shells, if you will, that are embodied by demonic spirits. And just like in the days of old, in the days of Noah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so, okay. Back in the days of Noah, it's my understanding, and I'd like to get your take on this. In the days of Noah, of course, we're talking about a situation where you're looking at the fallen ones corrupting the DNA, the actual DNA of the seed of Adam, of God's people. Is that your understanding of the corruption as in the days of Noah?
Yes, that's part of it. Actually, that is the main goal. That was the reason why the flood had to happen, because there was some time between a couple thousand years between Noah and Yeshua, Noah and the Messiah. There had to be a clear bloodline that was not defiled by Satan. That was the whole reason. He wanted to stop salvation. God had to preserve it.
Okay. So we're seeing what we're seeing now is a resurgence of this. It's a numbers game, actually, isn't it, that we're looking at? It's the defiling of the seed of Adam by Satan, but by
corrupting the bloodline, trying to corrupt the bloodline of Jesus. Not only that, but it talks about how all animal life was corrupted. All the original creations of the Lord are corrupted, the way that, or so that there could not be a pure person or Jesus, the Savior, coming onto the earth. And it says it in the Bible, and it talks about this in other places. That again, the world, as in the days of Noah, will become a literal Garden of Eden, where there will be fallen angels or demons that will be in our face, will be in the open. And remember, Lucifer comes as an angel of light. It says Jesus warned us most about being deceived in these times. And if, as Steve Quayle and Michael Arevna echoed again last night, if those days are not shortened, no flesh would be left alive. Now, we know that these people will pose as the saviors, as the Lord. The UN has already established that through their religious section on their website, that there will be, a Messiah walking the earth, the Messiah teacher walking the earth teaching. All the miracles that they will do will be nothing but deception, and many will be deceived. And the allegiance, going back to the mark of the beast, will be asked of the humans. And these miracles that will be done, and as you talked about, Dad, the evidence that will be shown to the people, for those who are not 100% rooted in their faith in Jesus, will be so confounded and confused that they will believe that these people, these entities that have come for restoring peace, are the answer, is the Messiah. And if you do not follow them, you will be killed by the people on this earth, because the people who hold out will be the problem. They will be what's blocking the rest of the world from their utopia with their new Messiah, quote unquote.
That's exactly right. These people are already beginning to hate Christians. There is an upsurge in Christian martyrdom all over the world. We have yet to see it in America. But we have already had demonstrations against Christians in America, burnings and that sort of thing, church burnings and community burnings against Christians. But we haven't seen the horrible atrocities that are going on all over the world against Christians right now, especially in Muslim countries.
Huh. Yeah, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
The origins, the Anunnaki. This is from a listener. Wanted me to ask you about the Anunnaki, from the beginning, the creation, the fallen ones. They had offspring, which were the giants, and which in the Book of Enoch, if you read, are the spirits that are the demons now, the ones that Jesus encountered and cast out into the pigs. What is your take on the story of the Garden of Eden, Miss Hopkins, on how some people actually believe in physical giants, some people don't believe that the giants were the size, or they just believe that they were a different type of human, they were bullies and tyrants, but they weren't physical giants. What's your take on the Anunnaki?
Well, I think the scripture is really very plain about that. Goliath, not only he was a giant, his brothers were giants, and they came from a Nephilim family of giants. They've been around, through the centuries, and there are bones that have been dug up that were giants. They're bones. I mean, they're there. It's hard to say no, they didn't exist when it's right there in front of your face. But secondly, the scripture says that these were the mighty men of great renown. So yes, I believe they were giants, actual physical giants, and I believe scripture is very plain about that. It actually goes into the actual size of the people. I mean, it goes into measurements and that sort of thing. And so.
Yeah, I agree as well. And I think that I'm not sure of the origin of that question, Joe, if that was a listener question, but yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, I think the evidence, even though the physical evidence, I think we've got that, and I think the scripture is pretty clear on that. But let's move along here. We've got Ms. Hopkins, we've got this weekend, I believe it is, the 13th, coming up, this Veterans March on the memorials in Washington, D.C. Now, throughout today, I must have gotten, I don't know, maybe 100 emails about this and various notifications about this. Is this government spoiling for a fight? I mean, is this? Are we walking into a trap here? And I apologize for being all over the board tonight, but there's just so much going on here, and we're trying to stay coherent. But tell me what your thoughts about this. You've got the closure of the national parks and monuments, but the veterans memorials. Are we being set up here?
Yeah, that's bait. I mean, come on. That's bait. We're being baited into it. And if you're a veteran, that's a slap in the face.
Right.
And if veterans are coming to our capital, and some of them are saying there's going to be an arrest and some sort of trial right there on the grounds, I mean, what are these people thinking?
Well, what people are you referring to now? The veterans or the
veterans are. It seems to me like, if you're going to the Capitol and you're going to arrest the President of the United States and carry on some sort of trial, bringing the judges right there with you, what is that about?
Okay, now I heard a couple of different incarnations of that. I heard that that was insinuated or inserted into this to discredit the veterans. All the veterans wanted to do or intend to do is visit the memorials. Nothing more, nothing less. And they have a petition that's being circulated to keep them open. The other part of that story, and pretty much, I think I've narrowed this down. The other part of that was inserted into the story to make the veterans look foolish. What do you think?
Well, what's the other part of that?
You mean the other? I'm not sure.
You said the other part of that was. You mean that what you just said was inserted later?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
If they're going there just to say, look, we're veterans. Those memorials were given to us. These are for the people. These are not for you to shut us out and arrest us and take us away because it's government land. We are the government.
Right. And
if that's what they're doing, I say let millions of them go and sit in and make a statement. We're here. This is for us. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, because we witnessed this too with the truck. In fact, it's interesting because it's happening on the same weekend as the truck drivers circling Washington, D.C., and there was talk, in fact, the very same kind of discussion. We're going to go in and we're going to make arrests of the president and the lawmakers and what have you, when they had to come back and say, wait a minute, we never said that. All we're doing is driving our trucks and making a statement here. So I'm really interested, from an investigative point of view, standing back, watching this happen, watching this unfold, seeing this disinformation peppered in with the legitimate information. That's what I'm a little bit concerned about. I'm concerned about who's doing that.
I think if they go in and the same thing happens that happened with the motorcycle riders and the million Muslim whatever it was supposed to be.
Right. The 6 people that showed up, right?
Yeah. 6.5. They were the baby, I'm sure. Anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
If it goes in with the same intent and with the same outcome, I say more power to you.
Okay.
And I say a lot of other Americans are going booyah.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah, and I want to caution our listeners too. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there, and a lot of it is being made to look made to have the veterans look foolish or planted by these I don't know if they're hackers. I don't know what you would call them, but the stories are changing. So the long and short of it, as I see it, based on my research, is veterans going to the memorials just to make sure that they're open and saying, "Hey, these are our memorials," and nothing else. Same with the truckers, nothing else. So,
and if I was going to say something to the veterans that are marching there, I would say, go there and go proud. Thank you for freedom.
Absolutely.
Thank you for valor, for standing between me and danger. For standing on that wall and saying nothing's going to hurt you tonight. Thank you for doing that. And when you go, know there are going to be government provocateurs. Don't play into that game. Be proud. That's what you're there to be.
Exactly, and we were 100% behind the veterans and the truck drivers, once again, within the scope of their intended project. And folks, don't fall for these mass mailings where you see where there's going to be arrests made of congressmen. No. These are intentionally being inserted into these mass mailings for the purpose of disinformation.
And I've seen titles of these organizations, such as the Galactic Space Federation, saying that, and this is like last year, we actually had a guest on, Joe from Realist News on YouTube, and where he was calling out some of these people who said, the aliens are here to save us, and they were sucking up the chemtrails with their UFOs, but the chemtrails gave their UFOs indigestion, and they had to take a break. And
was I here for that?
Yes, you were.
Did I hear that?
Yes, you were, and I'm not taking anything out of context. Also, that this person, David Wilcox or something, is talking about mass arrest of all the leaders of the world, and it's coming, and it's, while selling articles, basically letting people read a third of the article while selling the other, 2/3 for $2.99. A lot of these are schemes. We would like nothing more than to see actual real peace and order restored, and have a truthful, accountable, honest government implemented. But we're not going to play into the games and fear tactics that are driving sales of bogus information.
Exactly. Yeah. And how do you vet your information, Reverend Hopkins? How do you do it? I mean, in other words, the last YouTube, or the YouTube that you were referring to, the YouTube about the pandemic, the poisoning, mass poisoning. How do you vet to ensure that this is not disinformation that you're getting? Because we run into this a lot, and
every case is different. Every case is different. If there's information to be had, the internet, I mean, this is a library with everything in it, and all you need to do is look it up and do your research. Do your research on the internet. Now, in this case, he was a friend of a friend, and I knew the backstory on it.
Okay.
So I had that going for me. I also had pre-confirmations from my NASA contacts, and I had already known the backstory on what was going on with chemtrail nanites.
Okay.
So with this one, it wasn't hard to vet,
Okay.
This one was right at my fingertips.
All right. Well, no, because frankly, we do have information that is sent to us quite often, and we are left with spinning our wheels with stories. Of course, if it sounds so outrageous, I mean, we try to check everything, but if it sounds so outrageous that, we will look at it just briefly. But man, I'll tell you, it seems more and more there's this influx of attempts at discreditation. Did I say that right? Yeah, to discredit us.
Yeah,
to discredit you.
You have to be so careful.
Right.
You have to be so careful.
What's on your radar right now immediately? I mean, aside from what you had already discussed, we've got, a lot of this.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you heard about what's going on in Puerto Rico?
Yes.
Augusto Perez was a guest on our show
last
Monday who talked about this and had firsthand proof of the supplies being gathered there, the body bags, those types of things. And he did come on and verify that much of that was true and the FEMA preparations were true.
And by the way, that took us a week. It took me a week. After talking with Mr. Perez, I independently went and checked with my various sources, only one of which was able to verify, and I trust my source about this. So, yes, FEMA, Puerto Rico, body bags, and what have you. But what are you hearing about this?
It's all true. I've heard it on the news there in Puerto Rico. The supplies are there. The shipments of the and interestingly, these things came from FEMA Region 3. Remember all the supplies that were going to FEMA Region 3?
Oh yeah.
A lot of them went to Puerto Rico. They're taking them to high ground because there have been people by the thousands en masse are having the same dream that a meteor is coming down and a 1,000-foot wave is going to commence. But there's something else that we need to remember here with all that's going on. I don't know if you heard about all the people having the same dream.
Yeah, however, I find it a little difficult to really comprehend or to associate this movement of assets to Puerto Rico based on a mass consciousness event. Now, there's got to be something else there, in my view, to more to that. So
yes, because the government's not going to do all that without knowing what really is going to happen, and how do they know it's going to happen there?
That's a good question.
They don't rely on psychics. Okay. So the thing is, first of all, we already know that NASA and other space-going agencies can not only stop asteroids and comets and other near-Earth objects with frequency and LIDAR and laser and ground-based telescopic radar telescopes and so forth. Any TTA that emits that kind of frequency can slow down and possibly even stop an asteroid. We can put a bag around the asteroid, send our guys up there, take samples of it, do whatever tests we want with it, send it on its merry way. Okay, if we can do that, then we can, if we see it coming, nudge it out of the way. Arecibo has done that. They've shown us pictures, they've pinged it, nudged it out of the way. We've proven we can do it. And like I said, we have symposiums every year about the newest techniques of doing that. There's something else. Okay, so if we know it's coming, we're bringing it. That's my point. If we know that something is coming that far out, we're bringing it. We're either creating it to false flag it, or we're bringing it. All right, the other thing is, if all these people are really having this dream, it's possible it could be a Joel 2 event, okay? But it's also possible that we know through TTA instrumentation on satellites that are circling all around the globe that we have the technology to use PSYOPs on large populaces at the same time. And I believe it's very possible that it's a type of psyops that's happening right now in Puerto Rico in preparation for this false flag event.
Now that's interesting because we had Dr. John Hall on September 11th who was talking about this very subject using Joe, help me out here. Using
electromagnetic
means.
frequencies to, along with gang stalking and other manipulation of the brain to manipulate people to put voices in their head, kind of like we saw with the D.C. shooter, how he was, being told things. The Navy Yard shooter.
Exactly.
The electromagnetic frequency attacks, and it is not a small percentage of the people that have been dealing with this. Not when we look at the numbers, it is, I think it was 5% of the population. After the Navy Yard shooter, NBC even came out and put out a story that said voices in your head by electromagnetic attacks, not as uncommon as you think.
Wow, I did not see that.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's definitely interesting. So the mass consciousness, and folks, don't dismiss this just because we don't understand it. We can look at it, evaluate it, and make our own decisions based on the available evidence and the technology that we know is available, or that is that we find to be available. So just relax, everybody, and let's just take a look at the weight of evidence here. That's all. So it could very well be where this could be some sort of grand experiment. Don't forget MKUltra. Look at what MKUltra did on a microcosmic level compared to perhaps something like this on a macro level. Just saying. So is there any time factor on Puerto Rico?
Well, everything else is happening this fall, this winter, early next year. Why not that too? We're going to be traveling through ISOM's debris field, no question about it, early next year. So I would say at the very latest, or at least early next year.
Okay.
But because of all this other stuff that's coming down the pike, it may be sooner than that. And if ISOM comes closer to the world, closer to Earth than we've been told, which I believe is the case personally, I believe it may be as early as this December.
Interesting. All right. I got to ask you this, Michelle. I've got to ask you this. Did you happen to see the photograph? We're all over the place tonight, folks. Our very special guest, for those who are just joining us, is Reverend Michelle Hopkins. I've got ADD tonight. Just call me Steve Quayle. Steve, I love you, brother. Okay.
The sound problems really throw you off.
Well, yeah, they did. But anyway, did you see that photograph of Biden holding a classified document?
Code word.
Did you happen to see that?
I did not.
Okay.
Fill me in.
There was a picture of Biden taken after a meeting of the executive branch, and they were coming out looking like they were standing there for a press conference. Jay Carney was reading his latest
tweet or
press speech from his BlackBerry. Yeah. Joe Biden was holding, with both hands, holding this book or packet, and it was a packet, like a daily briefing packet. Instead of holding the title, document. Instead of holding the title towards his body, he had the title showing outward, and right on the top, right on the front of it, in big red letters, was code word.
Right.
And it was a daily briefing or some kind of briefing. This is right after. It wasn't a daily briefing. It was a top secret confidential memo. And by the way, I do know enough from my sources where the top secret documents are not to be taken out of the secured areas.
period. Okay. One to my source was, well, because it was believed that this photograph was taken in the Oval Office. My question was, is the Oval Office considered a secure area? And there was some hesitation from my source, and said, well, it depends. And then, of course, went into a 20-minute discussion as to the technicalities of secret, top secret, and classified this and classified that. And in the end, I had no idea what he was talking about. But he's probably listening and saying, "You're paying attention." But the picture, code word, classified, the way he was holding it, as if, just imagine standing upright and holding your hands in front of you, we'll say in a clasped position. In other words, just holding them together in a clasped position, in a relaxed, your arms down at your front. And however, this book was in his hands, and his hands were forming what I would call, and this is just me, folks, you don't have to agree with me, but almost like an Illuminati type of a symbol, as if to say, as if the picture would say, hey, I'm read in on the project, whatever the project might be. Whether or not it had anything to do with the actual document he was holding, that's a different story. But since you didn't see the picture, I can't really ask you too much about it, but what do you think of that?
Well, it sounds to me like he was giving the go-ahead. They were looking for the code word, and if it was Illuminati with their humor, code word might just be code word.
So you're telling me that Biden actually makes decisions?
No, I'm saying
I'm just kidding.
Somebody told him, go out with this because we're ready. And you are our sign lackey. So go out and show this to the world. We're ready to do this one thing we said we were going to do.
And that does make sense, yes.
Okay, and you know what? Here's a couple other things too, man. Now I'm finding my stride here, and I apologize. It's kind of late for that, but
okay.
Man, I need to. Never mind what I need. But here, okay. I had written an article too about the communication between the nonverbal, almost like signs. Between those in power and those receiving the signs. There's these hidden signals being given between the powers that are and others, and even to the extent code words and speeches. And Fox and Friends even wrote about this in 2011. So, folks, don't say you're crazy. Okay, I mean there are other legitimate news outlets that are talking about this as well. My question:
people in the Illuminati say they do that.
Yeah, and we've seen the secret Masonic handshakes and all of this. The numbers, for example, I've been noticing a pattern in numbers. 19.5, for example, 11, 19, and so on. Are you familiar with the communication? I mean, are there codes being sent out by the intentionally here to recipients of, we'll say, a larger conspiracy?
Well, if there is one, the next one is October 17th.
Well, you're basing that on the debt.
The economic, yeah. And lots of people are saying that, as the president says, he will not negotiate with Republicans. He will not negotiate under threat, which I found to be some very interesting keywords, because I kept hearing that pop up. Seeing it once in an article was one thing, but to hear "I will not negotiate under threat," it made me think: is he talking about more of a threat than the Republicans saying they won't deal unless certain things are on or off the table? But
it sounds to me like they know what the word threat means when it comes out of his mouth, and what it is in fact happening is he and his people are threatening them if they don't play.
Okay, So the threat's coming from Obama rather than he receiving the threat, is what you're saying.
I believe so, because we know they're not receiving a threat.
Well,
I mean, as far as, yes, we're not going to send anything there unless it has to do with this as well. That's the only threat.
All right. Because my concern is this. The president could outlive his utility, and I've said this before on air, where if you look at the power structure, the puppeteers, and look at Obama as a puppet, a willing puppet nonetheless, let's say he outlives his usefulness, utility for the power brokers. And notice, folks, too, I wrote an article, it's on the website, HomelandSecurityUS.com, about the comparison between Obama and Lincoln and how they really both ruled by executive order in pretty tyrannical ways. What would happen, and I'm just throwing this out for intellectual discussion, if the powers that be felt that Obama had outlived his usefulness and just decided to replace him, but in replacing him, making him a martyr of sorts, wouldn't that advance the objective of the Obama regime much quicker and much cleaner than any other way? I'm not advocating this. I'm just bringing this out as a point.
Well, no one would ever oppose it again. That's for sure.
Yeah.
He would be a martyr, no doubt about that. And I believe, Biden would come in and say, it's his ticket, it's his thing, and we're going to, just like Johnson did, do the same kind of thing.
We saw what I believe was tantamount to a coup back in 1963. And we saw what happened there when Kennedy became his own man and stood up to various things, including but not limited to the CIA, saying that he's going to shatter the CIA into pieces. And that's not to say Obama has become Kennedy or his own man either way. It's just to say, wow, wouldn't that be a rather expedient manner in which to get his agenda into etch it into stone, so to speak.
And then that begs the question, well, who's next? Because it's not going to be Biden except to fill in for the Obama presidency, in my humble opinion. So who's next? Well, people are looking at Mrs. Clinton, and I told some other people, I was afraid of her when she just had a proximity to the presidency. To have her hand on the pen, I'm not sure I could handle that. I would be terrified to have her hand on the presidential pen.
Exactly, and we've seen how she handled Benghazi. And we've seen how she handled the issue of health care as the first lady to Bill Clinton. Of course, that was her failed task, her legacy prior to Benghazi, which is her new legacy. But that said, yeah, and I'm not so sure about Biden if he would. I'll just end it there. I'm not going to get further into the depth about that, but I was just curious as to what your thoughts were on that, if you even had heard anything about Obama's usefulness to.
I have heard people saying that they believe that is true, and not just that he's been used up as far as America is concerned, but that the Illuminati has pretty much finished with him. But then, where do you go from there?
Yeah, and that conversation gets a little dicey. Where do you go from there? And of course, it depends on how and the circumstances. And of course, that could accomplish a number of other objectives too. When you think about it, could it not? Could it not advance? Oh my goodness! Just an uprising over the Second Amendment, depending on what happens or how things happen. How about labeling blaming something that would happen that would decapitate our leadership like 1963, except a little bit deeper, if you get my meaning. The parties, the Tea Parties, the constitutionalists would immediately be painted as the perpetrators, I believe, and then from there you could see how badly things would go. And again, this is just intellectual discussion.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine the anti-Christian, anti-white, anti-anything wholesome and godly?
Do you think, are we getting set up for racial and social war here in America?
I believe we have been for a while now. I believe that's what Trayvon was all about. And,
but that kind of fell kind of flat, didn't it?
The truth will out. That's just it. If you're a liar and you're working for the father of lies, it's only going to work for a short time until the truth outs, and it will always out.
That is very true. Reverend Hopkins, I got to tell you, I've got, 24 email questions for you all over the board and from people all over the country interested in what you have to say about a number of different topics. Having seen your array of videos, I'm not sure if we're going to have time, Joe, for all of these. Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Go ahead and read a few. I know we're at the top of the hour. Go ahead and throw a few questions in there, and then we'll take a light break and take some calls afterwards.
Okay. Let me clear this one up, because this is the second time I've got this, and this is a personal question. Do you mind taking a personal question?
Feel free.
Okay, good. Let me find it here. Okay. Hang on just one second here. This is the second or third time I've gotten this question, and I'm going to throw it out there to you. Handle it as you will. Does the Bible teach that women are not to take positions of leadership within the church? And the question obviously stems from your designation as a reverend. Now, honestly, I'm just going to ask the question. Have you gotten that question before? Do you get that question? And if you do, how do you handle it?
I get it all the time, but usually it's from shills.
Man.
Or from people who come at me and just really are vicious and cruel. Paul, when he mentioned that in Scripture, women who, and if you know anything about the Hebrew social life, women who were Jews were not allowed to be taught. They were not allowed, especially the Torah, anything biblical, they were not allowed to be taught. And so if they had questions, they were not to question in the church or synagogue, but they were meeting, aside from synagogue, and they had all these questions. And so rather than having them interrupt the service, they said, answer your wife's question at home so that it doesn't interrupt the service. Oh. Basically, that was what was going on.
Okay. Well, again, forgive me for asking the question someone asked, and I figured, you know what? That's a fair question. Personally, I view this as someone asking the question that cannot attack or will not address the information that you bring, the research that you've done, yet will turn around and say, well, this shouldn't be, this isn't right, not even addressing the core material that we're talking about. I just think that's where that was coming from. So.
Right. And just to go to let you know where I'm at as far as that's concerned, I've never pastored a church, and that's not my calling. My calling is to evangelize the world through music and through whatever other talents the Lord gives me to use. That's what I'm here for, and shining light on the news and how it relates to Scripture and prophecy is part of that. People come to me with questions and so forth. How do I be saved? Things like that. I have things going on in my life. What should I do? And we go to the Lord and we find out what the Lord says that He wants them to do. So as far as that's concerned, I minister to people, and I try to help people understand how to minister to other people. You know, as ministers, we equip others for the ministry of the gospel.
Very, very well said. Very well articulated. Thank you for entertaining that question and not being angry about it.
And if I can say this, you know, there's so few people that are preaching the word of Jesus and trying to lead people in the right direction now. I don't care if you're a man, a woman, a child, a tree, as long as you are not a dark angel or a dark spirit, and if you are trying to help people and bring them to Jesus and to His saving grace, then I really don't care. Like I said, if you're a child, a man, a woman, if you're homeless, if you're rich, all that stuff goes out the window when you're trying to just do the work of the Lord and the work the Lord asked us to do.
I believe that, yeah.
Yeah, that's the bottom line, really. And
that's what we're here for. I mean, isn't that the bottom line? I mean, really, when you get right down to it. Here's another question from Oklahoma. Margot, thank you for this question. John Moore has talked about, troops, Chinese troops, I believe. Okay, does Michelle think that the recent Chinese troop reports, and then in parentheses, John Moore, shipped to Dayton, Ohio? I have not followed this, apparently. Then disseminated to Kansas City and other cities, have anything to do with the pandemic issue, which you talked about at the beginning of the program?
I'm not sure. That may just be a drill. When I think about Chinese, taking over America, I think to myself, well, if they're going to do it financially, why do they need to do it militarily?
Boy, that's true. Now my question, how bad are we with China? I mean, I've heard some horror stories. I mean, have we sold the company store to China?
Well, okay, first, China hates us. I mean, if you hear them talking to Russia,
yeah.
any Russian leader, a Chinese leader, just seethes against America, both of them together. They have that in common. What we've done, and this information is like a year or two old. A year or two ago, China owned 40% of America's debt. How much is it now? I don't know.
A lot.
Probably more than 40%. So, little by little, jot and tittle, we're giving it over to China. And if we renege on our debt to China, China can say, okay, give me that, give me this. This is mine, that's mine, hand it over. And how much of America goes into China's hands?
Interesting. Collateralized, yes.
Yeah. So, then they might need Chinese troops to back that up.
All
but
right. Makes sense. Okay. And that was from Margot from Oklahoma. Hopefully Margot, that answers your question.
Yeah, and what is it? Almost 12 after the hour. We're late for our break. Ms. Hopkins, you are welcome to stay if you'd like. We're going to take some calls from the audience, which you can stay or go. We'll leave it up to you.
I'll stick around.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions for Ms. Reverend Michelle Hopkins, give us a call at 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839. We'll be right back with Ms. Hopkins and your calls. So give us a call, get on hold, stay in line, and we'll get to you as fast as we can. Thank you.
Absolutely, after resetting the program clock because of the outage.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our third and final hour of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Wednesday, October 9th, 2013, with our very special guest, Reverend Michelle Hopkins, who has been so kind as to stay and take phone calls from our listeners, as we're going to do that now at area code 661-244-9839. We're going to take the calls in the order in which we receive them. And we're going to go to area code 805 first. Thank you for calling in. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hi, everybody. This is Enter the Stars. I have a viral YouTube channel. I just wanted to discuss the recent fireball activity with Rev. Michelle and see if she had any input on how that might be affected by Comet ISON. I did a video recently on the increase and noticed that it was noticeable from the American Meteor Society. And so I've also been in talks with Mike Hankey, the operation managers there, and he did, in fact, conclude that we are seeing a major uptick in meteor activity. By going to the site, you can do a simple search year over year. We're talking hundreds of percentage points. And he says the media is asking questions, but they're not reporting on it. So obviously something is happening in our atmosphere.
I would agree. I think that's a wonderful question. Thank you for that. It's so important. Yes, ISON has everything to do with that. We are seeing a huge uptick in fireballs, meteors, meteorites, and so forth falling down through our atmosphere. The reason why ISON has everything to do with that is when it was making its way into our solar system and through our solar system, it had to travel through the asteroid belt. As it did, it careened into asteroids and other debris, throwing them helter-skelter all over the universe. And some of them, of course, came toward Earth. A lot of them came toward Earth. Now, interestingly, ISON is not the only comet that's been doing that this year, going through our solar system. We've got quite a few of them going through our solar system this year, and most of them, if not all of them, had to travel through that asteroid belt. So we're seeing a lot of this activity, and as we go into next year, early next year, and definitely travel through ISON's debris field, we're going to see even more, in my humble opinion. And if ISON comes close to Earth in a closer trajectory than we're being told that she is supposed to, and her trajectory is changing because of this jetting that's going on, and Russia is convinced that America also has something to do with the changing trajectory of ISON, which, let's be honest, is entirely possible. But it's possible that it's changing in such a way that Earth or any other heavenly body in our solar system could be affected by its new course.
And that kind of raises an additional question, if I might.
Okay.
And that is, you know, we all understand that there's a government blackout here with NASA. But we all also know that they are definitely watching ISON as it is past Mars. But we as taxpayers are not able to see that data.
Exactly.
And we can't even really complain to Congress because Congress is shut down.
Yep.
Any thoughts on that, of how we can get that data? I mean, this is a historical event, the crossing of ISON past Mars.
Yes. The only thing I can tell you is there are backyard telescopes that are giving data online. They're uploading data online. And there are sites that you can go to see this data. We're not going to see it from the government. That's classified. It's top secret. Not going to happen. But we can find it in these online sites that show background data coming out. We're getting some really beautiful imagery, but we're getting a lot of different explanations of what we're seeing. That's the unfortunate part. And you have to wade through what is right. And if you have friends who know a lot about it, go to those friends, ask what's going on.
Any theories as to why the government is hiding that data?
I do have theories as to that. And one of those theories is when the president made it classified, the reason is because they are now weaponized. We can use them as a weapon anywhere on the earth. So if you're going to do that, of course you have to classify it. It has to be top secret. That's why Russia insisted that it was us doing that when that fireball hit Russia on that very fateful day of all days, that it would happen there when we were having an argument with them.
Interesting.
Just have one additional point, and then I'll let other callers go ahead. In looking at the data from the American Meteor Society on their website, the most reports were on March 22nd. That was the day Obama was in Bethlehem. And the number 322, of course, has a lot of significance. But that is just very overt to me, and I just would like to hear your comments on that. Thanks for the time.
Well, it could have been false flag contrived by our own weaponry, bringing these things in, creating them ourselves, throwing them down, or it could be a sign from God. I don't know. I honestly don't.
Yeah, and I believe that, a sign from God is something that, just in my spirit, I don't feel that ISON poses any danger to us, but I think it is going to be a sign for people to get out of their house, for people to look and see what's going on, and for them to feel in their soul and to understand that times are changing, something is happening on the earth. And I hope I'm right about not posing a danger to Earth, but at the same time, I hope enough people do understand that we are in a different time like any other in history, and that comment would shed some light on that to people's souls, for the most part, to awaken them from the slumber that they're in, and to understand the importance and the lateness of the hour.
Yeah, I hope so. That would be wonderful, because it really truly is. I mean, if nothing more happens in ISON's wake than what has already happened, we need to look up. Things are happening, things are snowballing, and Scripture is unfolding right before our eyes.
Yes, it is. And we're going to go to another call, area code 308. We're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Doug, Joe, God
Good
bless
evening.
you both. Reverend Michelle Hopkins, wow, it's just amazing the information you know. You were talking about China earlier. I've heard that China owns 40% of our parks. Is that true?
Well, I know they own 40% of our debt. And if our parks are tied up in our debt, that's very possible.
Caller, it's my understanding, and Reverend Michelle, it's my understanding that our parks are actually under the control of the United Nations or national parks. Reverend, any comment on that, or are you aware of that through the Biodiversity Project?
Well, I wasn't aware of that, but I knew biodiversity and sustainability were all going to be a part of that, that we are handing over our sovereignty to the United Nations, just as every other member of the United Nations is going to, and whatever people, whatever nations who don't, are going to be trampled upon.
Okay, right. No, exactly. And by the way, caller, I spoke to Steve Quayle this morning early, and we were talking about this very issue about the parks and about the park police and about the collateral for the debts and the possibility. We were just tossing around possibilities. Is it possible, like this caller said, is it possible? Where China's got a claim to various, but one would think the claim would be to perhaps the oil fields or to things of more intrinsic value as opposed to something of little or dubious actual value.
Right, oil banks or gross national product, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
right.
Carla, thank you.
I understand. One other thing, if I might, I got in the first hour, I got in on your program late, and Michelle was talking about the nano. What do you call them? The
nanites.
The nanites, and I kind of just got in there a little bit, and I missed Could you explain those again?
Okay, we were talking about two different kinds of nanites. The first kind that Dr. Weld was not referring to are the kinds that we normally think of in chemtrails that create incessantly polysilicon fibers. And that's where Morgellons comes from. And they are self-replicating. And these other ones that he's talking about are tiny. They're about the size of a grain of sand. They're opaque. You can barely see them if you put them on just the right surface. And they go in our bodies and basically cause a cascade of symptoms that eventuate in death.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's just unbelievable.
Wow. Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks much, Paul. Reverend Michelle, Dr. Weld, just go back and tell me again, he is ill, correct?
He is. He's in renal failure.
Okay. And his prognosis obviously is not good, being in renal failure. My goodness. Is he a friend of yours, or do you know him well?
He's a friend of a friend.
Okay. All right.
And I've only been hearing about him for a few weeks now, but this friend of mine knows him pretty well.
Is he a medical doctor or a PhD?
A brain surgeon, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm not even... Wow, I just wish him well. My prayers are with him.
Me too.
Wow. I mean, wow. Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
We're going to move on to back to calls here.
Hand me my drool cup, okay?
Will do. Area code 304. We're coming to you next. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report with Michelle Hopkins. What's on your mind tonight?
It's good to speak to you again tonight, gentlemen. This is Phil from West Virginia. It's nice to speak to you, Reverend Michelle.
Okay, it's nice to speak to you.
I've read some of your work. I kind of want to get into Revelation a little bit. Are we seeing the sealing up of the elect of God right now as we do programs like this? And I got another question. Do you believe that Lucifer, in all of his pomp, would give over his one time to shine to set in the temple that's going to be built very soon here, and not be there himself? He would give it to another or possess another to engage in the last of our days, when he is, what was his goal in heaven, and why did God kick him out in the first place? Could you answer? No, I know. But thank you for that. I just would like to hear your comments on that.
Okay, well, let's take the last one first. The Scripture talks about the abomination of desolation, and I believe that's going to be fulfilled again, if you will, through the Antichrist. I think the first time it happened as a foretelling of what was going to happen in the end times. I believe the Antichrist is going to stand in the Holy of Holies. He's going to try to take his place on the throne there in the temple. I don't believe he will actually be able to sit, if you will, on the actual mercy seat of God. I don't think that the human body that the Satan will be covered in, that he will be abiding in, if you will, would be able to take what would happen to him if he did that. But he will place abominations, in my opinion, in the Holy of Holies, in the inner court. and halfway through that 7-year treaty. And then he'll be forced back out. But I believe he's going to do that, and Satan will be living in him. You know, Satan will be living in the Antichrist at that time.
Do you have any? I'm going to interject a question here in between those questions. Do you have any designs, any suspicions, any candidates on who the Antichrist might be?
I think I have my finger on the false prophet, but I think the Antichrist is still hidden.
You want to share?
I believe it's the Black Pope.
Oh.
The Pope, now residing Pope that everybody believes is the last Pope, because he was the leader of the Jesuits. And we're beginning to see him untying all the ties of the church. You know, that
right.
He's going back and forth. You know, homosexuality, let's not talk about that. And then he talks about it. You know, there's a lot of confusion there going on. I think he's beginning to break those down.
I understand. Okay.
There does seem to be a wrestling with his spirit, or at least what he says, because as you say, Michelle, one speech he'll say, you know, we need to follow what Jesus said, you know, strictly. And then the next interview he gives is, you know, you don't need God in order to go to heaven. It's confusing. And to see him lead so many people, and I saw MSNBC's Chris Hayes do and I don't know if many people saw this. I couldn't even find the video after I saw it on my little Roku player that plays clips from, you know, different media outlets, but it was called The Coolest Pope Ever. And it was because they were calling him the coolest pope ever because of his stance on you know, homosexual marriage and abortion, and basically conforming to the world's ideas rather than sticking to the doctrine of Catholicism, and saying, the Pope even saying, you know, Catholicism will fall like a house of cards if it doesn't conform to today's societal norms.
Well, isn't that the tail wagging the dog? You know,
yes.
Church is supposed to be the one leading the world spiritually, not following the world spiritually.
Good point. Caller, are you still with us?
Yeah, I put him on hold.
Okay, I just didn't know if, because now that we interrupted his.
Okay, yeah, he's back.
No, good point. That was excellent.
Thank you. The other question, I believe, had to do with the sealing of the saints. First of all, as saints, what makes us saints is that we have the seal of the Holy Spirit within us. But the sealing that you're talking about is the actual seal on the foreheads. It's very, very close to the end, not long before Jesus returns. So I don't think we're quite there yet. I think maybe there's a few years before we get to that point.
Well, I guess I look in, like your guest last night was saying about in the book of Jeremiah, before the coming of the king of Babylon. When I read that, it seems like America. It seems like the world. You know, we're just waiting for the coming of the king of Babylon, and you know, he's got us surrounded, and we're in Jerusalem, and he's got us surrounded, and all these things that were prophesied against the people in the city are being prophesied against us right now, and we're just waiting for the king of Babylon to take over. And that really, that's where I see we are.
You know, it's interesting that you should bring up the king of Babylon, waiting for the king of Babylon, because Saddam Hussein was basically deceived by Satan himself and told that he was going to be the one to lead the world, that he was the reincarnation of the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. it's my belief that this is something that Satan is telling people, because perhaps the reincarnation, if you will, of Nebuchadnezzar is who this person is coming up to proclaim himself to be.
And I don't doubt that. I guess I see it in a more of a interdimensional way than you might. But I believe that the angels are going to have to come back, and fallen angels. And I believe they're going to have to take their place here on earth. And I believe they're going to have to endure the end, like all of us, and we'll be here together. That's my belief.
Well, I believe the fallen angels are already here. I don't think they ever left. I think they had access to heaven for a time, but after the final war in heaven between the fallen angels and the heavenlies, when they are cast out never again to have that access, then they're here and they can't go back up. But they're here. They've been here, since the days of the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, and I do believe that. But like the guest was talking about last night, there's a golden a place gate that they can go through, and a silver gate.
The portal, yes.
No, that's. And you're talking, caller, about the interdimensionality of these entities, correct?
Yes.
Right. Okay. And Michelle, we had a guest on last night, Michael Arevna from RevelationNow.net, who was talking about he actually a 20-year computer programmer and drafted this program that used a number of different criteria that could actually predict
some future possible events, to the point where even school shootings based on star positionings and ley lines, but actually a school shut down their whole the whole county shut down school for a number of days due to his predictions that the next school shooting would happen at this location.
Hey, the officers took him very seriously, and that's where the interdimensionality comes in with respect to the angels and the transit between the earthly plane and the heavenly plane.
Talking about the rituals that were being done from the Super Bowl to the satanic rituals, and that they were being done in a period between certain changes of the constellations, and there would be certain these two portals would open up. And this is Nathan Leal, a guest we also had on, talked about this in a different way about these portals. But he stated that there was one portal that opens up between certain constellations that lets you into these dimensions, and one that lets you out, and you can only enter and exit during these specific times.
And that's a very, very simplified explanation. To a very complex issue.
It's not, because I just don't believe it's all spiritual. I believe that if the angels could come down in the times of Noah and have intercourse with women and have offspring, what makes you think they can't do it again?
Right.
And what makes you think they wouldn't be visible?
Right. These are my thoughts on that. Like angels, demons are interdimensional. They can come and go as they please, or as the Lord wills. They don't need some sort of portal to do that. They can do it at whim. The thing is, Satan likes human sacrifice. He gets off on that. That's his thing. So any excuse to have some sort of human sacrifice and destruction of innocence, he's going to take that opportunity. And if that means he's going to lie to his people and say, well, that will open a portal and allow me and my kindred to come in, that's what he's going to do.
I know, but what he desires most of all is worship. And what he needs those to worship him, just like he needed it then, he needs it now.
Right.
It's all about worship.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to take God's children away from worshiping the Creator to the creation.
What did he say to Jesus? If you'll just kneel down and worship me,
yes,
I'll give you everything.
I'll give you the whole world. He's very despicable character. He is the most despicable character in history.
Yeah.
There is
Not
none
nice
like
guy.
him. And when Jesus said, "Do not be deceived, do not be deceived," he meant that. How many times did he say that? Do not be deceived.
Amen.
God love you all.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Bless you.
Thanks for the call. We're going to move right along here and try to hit some more callers. Area code 570. We're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hi, guys. Hello, Reverend Michelle. My name's Pat. I'm one of the Hagmann's heroes in Tennessee.
Hi,
Oh,
Pat.
nice. Nice to meet you, Pat.
As soon as your voice came on, thank you, and I want to say hi to you, and it's good to talk with you again.
Thank you. Same here. Doug, there's a lot of Hagmann's heroes here. Let me tell you, nurses, a woman in the Army. It's interesting how it's growing. But
we're going to have to. On a side note, we're going to have to get you some sort of banner or something, or at least send you some flowers or a box of cookies or something. Go ahead, dog.
It's interesting. Well, I just had an odd experience at work last night, and I'd like to get your feedback, the three of you, on this. To me, it's Gestapo tactics, but I had to sign a form in order, well, really to keep my job. It's part of the Affordable Health Care Act. It's called the Elder Justice Act. And what it says is, all associates, agents, and contractors of blank, where I work, have the following responsibilities and rights under federal law. It just talks about how you must report within a certain amount of time if you first suspect that a crime has occurred in the facility. But here's the part that freaked me out. If you fail to report your reasonable suspicion of a crime, you may be subject to a civil monetary penalty of up to $300,000, and or you may be excluded from participation in any federal health care program. So I just couldn't believe that I had to sign that.
That's a Nazi technique.
That's exactly what I thought.
A Nazi technique. You take the people and you make them your policemen, and you force them into it. That's a Nazi technique.
And the fear that I saw in other people that I work with, it's kind of what the work we do is kind of like a CNA. We take care of the elderly, and I don't need to get health care because I already have it. But this one young girl that was with us, she has to get health care, and she's all upset because she can't get in and sign up, because the site crashed. And then she said, oh, what if, I don't report something? And, so that's what I wanted to run that by you, just because I thought the same thing.
Yeah, well, when it comes to the fact that the things they're going to have you report become diabolical, like if there are death panels and you're not allowing this person to die because the death panel said we're not going to treat them anymore, you can be reported for that, or someone else, or you have to report somebody else for that, for showing a kindness when Obamacare said you can't. I mean, that's when it becomes diabolical.
If I can interject something here, caller, if I understand this correctly, you're referencing, and folks, this is extremely, extremely important. You're referencing the failure of a person to, you're referencing the civil sanctioning of a person by failing, or if they would fail to report a criminal activity. Is that right?
Yes, it says, Elder Justice Act, reporting reasonable suspicion of a crime. Yes, if you fail to report your reasonable suspicion of a crime, you may be subject to a civil monetary penalty, yes.
Right. Okay, that is from my profession as an investigator, that is extremely disturbing on a number of levels when you think about it. Failing to report a criminal act will subject you to civil liability.
Up to $300,000, and to be excluded from participation in health care. I thought, was Hitler going to come in the room next? And the nurse who had me sign it she was upset. She didn't want to make us sign it, but she had to.
Oh, man.
But you know what I did? I kept my paper. Because I listen to your show, and I'm not stupid.
Way to go. Way to go. See,
mine's not in there.
I have to tell you, if everyone in the country did that and said, no, not today, not me, we're not going to do this, then we would not be in the position we're in today. And thank you so much, caller. Oh, but no, that disturbs me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's mind-blowing information.
Thank you. And if I may just say one more thing, we've learned here, or my friends, one's a nurse, we're all different. The key way that we can get information to other people is don't bother to tell them things they're not interested in, and they will hear you. For example, one of the nurses I was trying to talk to was interested in information about the Affordable Health Care Act and how things she wasn't aware of. So then I had her ear. There was a former police officer that I was talking to here, and I told him about that, the shutdown, what is that called? Oh, the GridX. And he was interested, but if I would have told him about the health care, he wasn't interested in that. So we just found that as a way to get the information across. Find out what a person's interested in first. Just give them that, because if you give them too much, you'll turn them off.
Very good, and that's a good way. Yeah.
Okay. With
Fantastic.
that, well, thank you so much.
Well, God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great night.
God bless you.
Yes, keep
You
in
too.
touch.
Oh, I will.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Crazy to think about that civil liability if you fail to, say anything that you might think is a crime or not a crime in relation with Obamacare. Now, if you've seen the news in recent days, the administration won't even disclose how few people have, or how many people have enrolled in Obamacare. One representative was interviewed. He said he thinks 10 or less have been enrolled. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was on TV saying it's not fair for us to have to give out stats only 8 days into Obamacare.
Wow.
The place where they expected, I think, 50,000 people to enroll per day or something along those lines. But they won't even give out numbers because they're so embarrassed about how few people have actually enrolled. And the glitches, remember MSNBC's Ed Schultz said Republicans, made up glitches, said there was glitches, when about half a dozen news agencies live on TV could not even enroll, even trying to mock enroll. But now the website's down until further notice. It is a train wreck, and as people in the chat room are commenting, you guys are exactly right. It's about consolidation. It's about control. It is a means to control and tax the healthcare system, control the people and the money. As we know that the penalty that you will pay if you don't enroll in Obamacare comes straight out of your bank account. If you do not have health care and you do not enroll, therefore you're not doing your fair share, meaning you have to pay a fine, which is a tax, and the Supreme Court, determined it was a tax, and they said it wasn't a tax, and blah, 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 blah. It's just
and if you don't pay that, then you go to jail.
Yeah, it's just consolidation and control over what they have not already consolidated and don't control.
It's all about centralization. And Reverend Michelle, isn't it true? I mean, what we're looking at here, and I think if you look at this whole thing, again, in a larger perspective, it's all about control. It's about control of the economy. It's about control of a large segment of the economy. It's about control of your personal and financial information. Who controls it? And
branding the cattle, using them for gain.
There you go.
That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. So wow, it's absolutely incredible. We're seeing so many things here take place. in the final waning moments of tonight's show, and I want to thank you for hanging in there with us.
It's been great.
Well, welcome. It's been fun.
Oh man, I'll tell you something. And we apologize for the audio glitches initially. It's not on our end, folks. We're fighting the fight. We've got all of the plugs in the proper outlets.
My dad has his hands duct taped away from the sound equipment.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to touch any buttons on the soundboard. Okay, it's really. I mean, seriously. But yeah, I'm not allowed to turn any dials. I can't touch the pretty lights. I can't do any of this.
I can see now. Pretty.
We're entering into a time, or we're in the time right now like no other. I certainly don't remember this. I'm old enough to be Joe's dad.
Wow.
Yeah. Actually, I am. But I've just never remembered a time like this, even back in the late 1960s. When I was a young man, of course, but I don't remember this. Do you, Reverend Michelle? Do you remember a time like this ever?
The tension,
no, it's
strife.
all this. Everything is happening all at once, all very quickly. Every day you see things that make you go, okay, that's why Jesus said if this didn't happen in a hurry and he didn't make the days a lot shorter, we would all perish.
Absolutely.
I mean, we could destroy this entire world, heaven only knows how many times. God himself is keeping it from happening.
What do you think of Fukushima? I mean, aside from the obvious, and pardon the abruptness of that question, but Fukushima, how serious of an issue are we going to? I mean, is this going to be an extinction level event, or does it have the capability of being an extinction level event even now? And why aren't we doing enough?
Well, let's go back to the beginning. Okay. I think, if you listen to Russian leaders, particularly at the time, the mayor of Moscow was boasting that it was their HARP-type TTA that took Fukushima out. They were the ones that caused the earthquake and the tsunami. That's what they boasted.
Using what? Scalar type?
Using their HARP-type TTA.
Okay.
What they did was, over time, just beat it with the ELF waves, extremely low frequency waves, and then finally hit it with a kill shot. And at that point, things went from there, dominoed from there. But
why? What's the motive there?
Well, it was Japan. And we're talking about Russia and Japan.
Yeah.
Russia and China are in, they're good friends.
Right.
And China hates Japan. Russia hates Japan. They want the islands south of Japan. They're fighting over that now.
Right. But
so, go ahead.
Okay. No, I guess I could see where you're headed with this. Yeah. Okay. I can understand.
Okay, and if Japan wasn't going to do it themselves, which if they're part of the UN, we all have our turn, where we do our mass culling of our herd, Agenda 21, everybody. We signed on to it. A lot of these, all of these weather things that are happening that are killing so many people and floods and all this kind of stuff, they're orchestrated by different members of the UN that have agreed to do it. I know this because when Oklahoma was happening, I watched the satellites as they would come in position, and the next one would come, and they would emit their stuff. The next one would come, it would emit their stuff. I mean, it was and that one was China, Russia, and America. And there was one from Namibia.
Okay. And what you said there, culling the herd there, that's important, I must say. Reverend Michelle Hawkins, we are at the closing of our show. I just want to say what a pleasure it was to have you on our show, how gracious you've been with your time, with your answers, with your patience with us. Thank you so very much. And go ahead and give your YouTube channel out again, Reverend.
All right. Well, let's just go to YouTube and search Rev Michelle Hopkins. Click on my name, and